Hello, educators. I hope that you guys are doing well. I have been doing a series of mindfulness within education in the group, and I've been posting them on a daily basis. I think I'm up to day 26, but what I've also decided to do is I'm going to come on and talk about the different days and just talk about the importance of mindfulness within education. Because as educators, it is so very, very important that we are mindful when we are teaching our students, not only for our students, but also for us as well. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is mindfulness? As teachers, there are a lot of times we do things and we are not too consciously aware of it. So as I said, I did a series of 30 days on teachers being mindful, but I also say not only just being mindful, also being consciously mindful, being aware, consciously aware, and connecting that with mindfulness. When we talk about mindfulness, it's also about we becoming aware of our emotions, and a lot of time without judging it, without passing judgment. And as a result of that, it enables us to navigate situation, and it enables us to see our student very differently. Because when we are looking at doing things in a mindful way, you are just seeing the situation as it is, without judging it, without having any, attachment to it in that way. You just see it in a very mindful and conscious way, how you are navigating with your students. And it is so important that we not only become aware of our own emotions, but we are also aware of our students' emotions. Because as you know, emotions on both sides could lead to disaster or could lead to a very uncomfortable session in the classroom. For example, if you are not consciously aware of your emotion and you are just doing things, coming things from a place of your own emotion, it means that you are not aware of your student's emotion. So you are doing things from your emotion and from what baggage that you have. So in terms of when you are going to tell a child of the relationship to their behavior, you are telling the child of from your perspective, from your emotion, not how the behavior presents itself. So that's what mindfulness does for us. It makes you become aware of the situation, aware of what is happening without judging whatever is happening. The other thing is, it's not only about your emotion, also being aware of your student's emotion, as I said. Because there's sometimes your student will do something, and because you're not mindfully aware of it, you are being very hard on that student, and you are judging that situation with a bag of emotion. What is your emotion? You're not looking at the thing as for what it is, and that could be quite damaging. Another thing is, as educators, you need to be present. You need to consciously be aware, be focused, and through focus, you could also be engaged. It is so very important that you are focused. And when you are mindful, you are also conscious that your students are not very mindful. Because you are mindful, you can actually see what's happening. Because you are judging things as it is. Mindfulness is also enabling you to empower your students and see your student behavior for what it is, instead of judging it for what it is not. And as educators, some of the things we need to be mindful of, I feel, is very much on behavior and how the students connect with us. So the more mindful you are as an educator, the more you're going to be able to help the students in terms of where they can because you are seeing the situation without any judgment. You see the situation as it is. You see the situation without any baggage. Because what I've discovered through a lot of reflection, when teachers are actually disciplining students, a lot of the time they're disciplining students from where they're coming from, their own baggages. They're not looking at the situation for what it is. Because there's sometimes you would have behavior in the classroom. It is just the behavior. No judgment. Just see it as just the behavior. The more you begin to see something as just it, the more you will be able to navigate and support your students. Because something else I realized through my years of teaching and being a teacher who used to teach teachers to teach and absorbing teachers, etc. A lot of the time when teachers are actually disciplining or teaching, etc., they're coming from a place of trauma. So some of them are very traumatized by how they have been taught or how they have been parents, especially when it comes to education. And one way back I have actually observed that is through maths. A lot of teachers who had very traumatic experience within the education system, i.e. in terms of maths teaching, etc. When it comes to them actually doing anything to do with maths, they've got an issue there in terms of their freeze, fright, or flight. So you'll have these three situations which takes place when it comes to educators and maths. Because they've never been, let me rephrase that, they've always been told that they're not good at maths. And they actually take that as their reality. They have never do anything differently. Because they've been told they're no good at maths, it became their reality and they began to fear maths. So for a lot of teachers in terms of dealing with students in relationship to either introducing them to anything that have maths concept, because of their trauma within education, it also becomes very traumatic in terms of how they are teaching and how they're disciplining students. So in order to be able to discipline students from a place of non-judgmental, they need to deal with the trauma. And some of the trauma which some teachers are experiencing could also be generational trauma. How they've been taught in schools and how they've seen schools. And as a result of that, it demonstrates how they themselves teach as teachers. For me, I had to really deal with my trauma in terms of my experience through the education system. And as a result of that, I do feel through reflection, it has made me a better educator because I'm able to be very empathetic with my students because I know how it felt when I was seen and taught in a particular way. So as a result of that, I am very, very mindful and also conscious how I deal with my students because I had to deal with my trauma so that I become a better teacher. But I'm seeing it all the time in terms of education, how teachers who are still going through the journey of the traumatic experiences, in education, that when it comes to dealing with with students in the classroom, it becomes an issue. There are a lot of judgments, and they're not mindful or conscious in the way they deal with the students. And as educators, we need to become very mindful and very conscious of dealing with students in terms of dealing with their behavior, dealing with the way we teach them, and dealing with the outcome we expect from them. So that's something I want you to think about. How are you teaching your student? What place are you coming from? Are you coming from still a place of pain, in terms of the trauma that you have experienced yourself as a person going through the education system? And have you dealt with that? Because as I mentioned earlier on, some of it could be your experience with maths. And those are the things we need to start dealing with in order to become better educators and be very empathetic when we are dealing with our students. Because I've seen it all the time in the way my colleagues deal with the student in terms of the endless shouting, etc. That has its foundation in your own life as a teacher, in your own life, and how you then navigate that when you become a teacher. Anyway, guys, tomorrow I'll be discussing the different days that I looked at, different ways in terms of mindfully teaching our students and how we deal with them in the classroom. As I say, when you're coming from a place of trauma, it is not conscious when you actually shout at the students, but when you reflect on this and you realize about it,